If you're building authority on LinkedIn, you've probably been told that you need 10,000 followers or you need 50,000 followers and you have to go viral and you need massive reach. And if you don't have those numbers, that you're failing. But here's the truth, follower count is a vanity metric. It does look impressive, but it doesn't necessarily correlate to business results. And I've seen people with over 50,000 followers who can't book a single client. And I've also seen people with 5,000 followers who have a wait list. Now, the difference is engagement, alignment, and influence. So the people with 5,000 followers who have built a micro influencer presence, their audience may be small but deeply engaged. So every post gets meaningful comments and every piece of content reaches the right people, and their followers actually convert into clients at a much higher rate. That's the micro influencer strategy, and it's the opposite of chasing follower count. Instead of trying to build a massive audience, you focus on building a small, highly engaged audience of the right people. And when you do that, you drive more business results with fewer followers. So over the course of this video, I'm going to show you exactly how to build a LinkedIn micro influencer presence. You're going to learn a few core strategies for building engaged followers, maximizing influence with a smaller audience, and converting followers into clients at a higher rate. And this is the same micro influencer strategy that I used in the early stages of building my LinkedIn presence, focusing on quality over quantity to generate real business results before hitting large follower counts. And it's the exact same approach that I personally leverage to amass over 55,000 highly engaged followers on LinkedIn as a platform, with over 10 million impressions driven on the platform in the last year alone, along with over 70 million impressions for just one of our client accounts, with one of our clients driving over 4,000 highly engaged followers in just a 30-day span. So before we get into these strategies, I just want to quickly touch on really the reason that follower count isn't the absolute priority. And the reason for that is because most followers are passive. So when you have a larger audience, most of your followers don't necessarily engage. They don't actually read your posts or comment. They don't necessarily reach out. They become a bit of a number, and numbers don't necessarily buy. In many cases as well, large audience can then be misaligned. So when you focus solely on growing follower count outside of anything else, you can basically attract anyone and everyone. So some of your ideal clients aren't, and then a misaligned audience won't actually convert. And so with all of that said, I want to talk a bit more about how we actually build for alignment and not volume. And this is really where you focus on attracting the right types of people, your ideal clients, rather than just trying to attract everyone. And the reason this matters is because when your audience is aligned, they end up engaging more, trusting you faster, and converting at a higher rate. And that's what actually drives business results. So the framework for doing this is you've got to think to yourself, well, you need to first define your ideal follower. So who do you want to attract, and be specific, because the more specific you are, the better. So the ideal follower profile, really think about what is the role. So what's their position or title? What's then their industry? What sector? What's the challenge that they have? So what specific problem are they experiencing? And what stage of business are they in? So you might say, well, my ideal follower is a 7-figure coach or consultant who's struggling to generate consistent leads and is ready to invest in a strategic LinkedIn presence. That's just an example. Now, the second step here is then to create content for that specific person. So don't try to appeal to everyone. Create content that speaks directly to your ideal follower. So aligned content characteristics could be the fact that it addresses their specific pain points, it uses language that they actually use, it shares solutions relevant to their stage, and it demonstrates an understanding of their world. So for example, instead of just how to grow your business on LinkedIn, instead it could be how 7-figure coaches can generate consistent 25K clients through LinkedIn without cold outreach, right? That could be an example. Now, the third step is to connect strategically. So don't just send connection requests to everyone, only connect with people who actually match your ideal follower profile. So your strategic connection criteria might be that they actually match your ideal client profile, they're active on LinkedIn, they're posting and engaging, and they're in your network, so there's mutual connections. Now, when you connect strategically, you build an aligned audience from the very beginning. Now, the fourth step is then to repel misaligned people. So don't be afraid to take positions that repel people who just aren't the right fit. So you can use the polarization strategy that we covered in a previous video. So an example of this could be, I'm not for beginners, I only work with established businesses. Or I'm not for people who want cheap because my clients invest 25K plus. Now, when you repel basically misaligned people, you'll find that you attract more aligned people. And what this looks like in practice is, let's say you're a consultant who works with seven-figure coaches, you then create content specifically for that audience. You connect only with seven-figure coaches and take positions that repel beginners and price shoppers. And over time, you'll find that you'll build an audience of 3,000 followers, all seven-figure coaches, and that's real alignment. And that audience will convert at a much higher rate than a generic audience of 30,000. So the real first strategy is to build for alignment and not volume. Now, the second strategy is then to maximize engagement. And this is where you turn your followers into active participants, people who actually comment, share, and engage with your content regularly. And the reason that this matters is because engagement amplifies your reach. It also builds deeper connection, and it signals to the algorithm that your content is actually valuable. That will then drive more visibility and more business results. So the framework for that is really that you want to create conversation stating content, right? Things that actually start conversation. So don't just share information, actually create content that invites engagement. So conversation starting techniques could be that you ask questions. You could say things like, what's your biggest challenge, or what's been the biggest challenge with X? Or you share contrarian take, so invite debate and discussion. Also tell stories, because people will engage with narratives, and use the fill in the blank format. So the biggest mistake I see is X, right? Now, the second step is to respond to every comment. So when someone comments on your post, actually respond, because this deepens the relationship and it also encourages more engagement. The comment response framework that you can leverage here is, first of all, to acknowledge their comment. You could say something like, great point, then add value. So you could say something like, here's another way to think about it. And then you can ask a follow-up question. So what's been your experience with this? Now, when you respond to comments, you signal to the algorithm that your post is generating conversation, and the algorithm will then amplify it. Now, the third step is to engage with your followers' content. So don't just post and then disappear. Actually engage with your followers' content, like their posts, leave thoughtful comments, and build reciprocal relationships. Because the strategic approach that you can take here is just to spend 15 minutes per day engaging with your followers' content, and then focus on your ideal clients, the people that you actually want to build real relationships with, and then leave thoughtful comments, not just generic great posts. Because when you engage with their content, they're a lot more likely to engage with yours, and then that becomes reciprocity. Now, the fourth step is then to create content that's easy to engage with. So make the content and make engagement effortless. So some tactics you can use for this is to end with a clear question. You can use some emojis, right? Just as engagement prompts, like drop a 100 if you agree as the emoji symbol. You can also say things like create list posts. So people love to add basically their own items to a list. Or you can use polls, right? It makes it for one-click engagement. Now, in practice, let's say you do a post or a contrarian take about LinkedIn strategy, and then you end with a question, do you agree or disagree? 20 people comment, and you respond to every comment with a thoughtful reply. The algorithm will then see the engagement and amplify your post, and you'll find that it will reach maybe 5,000 people instead of 500. And because your audience is actually aligned, 10 of those people might reach out to you, and then that's the engagement maximized. So that's really the second strategy, is to maximize your engagement. Now, the third strategy is then to convert followers into clients. So this is where you build a system that actually turns your engaged followers into paying clients at a high conversion rate. Now, the reason this matters is because the goal isn't just to build an engaged audience, it's to build a business. And a micro-influencer strategy allows you to convert followers at a much higher rate than a macro-influencer strategy. So here's the framework. The first step is to nurture your followers through consistent value. So don't pitch immediately, actually nurture your followers by consistently delivering value through your content. So some of the content types that you may want to leverage is tactical how-to posts. So actually teach something actionable. Also case studies where you can really demonstrate proof. Also frameworks where you really show your methodology, and also insights where you share strategic thinking. Now, when you consistently deliver value, your followers will start to think, well, if he's giving this away for free, imagine what he can deliver when you actually pay that person, right? Now, the second step as part of this third strategy is to identify warm leads, because not all of your followers are going to be ready to buy. So focus on the warm leads, people actually showing buying signals. Now, some of these signals could be consistent engagement, so like likes and comments on multiple posts, thoughtful comments, so where they're a bit more substantial and not just generic, profile views, so it shows that they're basically actually researching you, and then DMs where they're actually asking questions. So when you see these types of signals, it means that it's time to initiate a conversation. Now, the third step is to use the value first DM sequence. So we covered this in the LinkedIn messaging mastery video. So if you haven't seen that one, do go and check that one out on the channel. Now, an example of the first message would then be where you personalize and ask about their challenge. The second message would be where you deliver valuable, a quick, actionable insight. The third message is really where you deepen the conversation, so you ask a qualifying question. And the fourth message would be when you invite them to a call, so you frame it as helpful and not as salesy. Now, in the fourth step, this is where you want to track your conversion rate. So with a micro-influencer strategy, you can actually track your conversion rates closely. So the key metrics would be a follower to lead conversion rate. So what percentage of your followers actually become leads? Also your lead to client conversion rate. So what percentage of your leads become clients? You've also then got your follower to client conversion rate. So what percentage of your followers become clients? Now, with a micro-influencer strategy, you might have a 5 to 10% follower to lead conversion rate. And that means if you have 5,000 followers, 250 to 500 are leads. And if your lead to client conversion rate is, let's say, 20%, that's 50 to 100 clients from 5,000 followers. Now, compare that to a macro influencer that might have 50,000 followers, but only 0.5% follower to lead conversion rate. That's also 250 leads. It's the same number of leads, but you built it with 10 times fewer followers. So in practice, let's say that you actually have 4,000 engaged followers, you're consistently delivering value, and you identify 200 warm leads. You reach out to them with value first DMs, 40 people book calls, 10 become clients. That's a 0.25% follower to client conversion rate. For example, if you had a client that's worth 25K to you based on their LTV, that's 250K in revenue from 4,000 followers. So that's really the third strategy. It's converting the followers into actual clients. So if we're to put all of this together now, the first strategy is to build for alignment and not volume. So the steps there are to define your ideal follower based on their role, the industry, the challenge, and the main stage they're at. Create content for that specific person, so address their particular pain points. Then connect strategically only with your ideal followers and repel misaligned people, so use polarization. The second strategy is then to maximize engagement. So create conversation starting content, use questions, contrarian takes, and stories. Also then respond to every comment, so acknowledge, add value, and ask follow-up questions. Engage with your followers' content. So at least 15 minutes a day, do some strategic engagement, and then create content that's easy to engage with. So clear questions, use emojis, lists, and polls. The third strategy is to convert followers into clients. So nurture followers through consistent value. Use tactical case studies, frameworks, insights. Also identify warm leads, so consistent engagement, leave thoughtful comments, profile views, direct messages, things of that nature. And then use the value first DM sequence that we went through, the 4 messages that take someone from value to a call. And then also track your conversion rate. So your follower to lead, your lead to client, and your follower to client. So when you go about doing this consistently, what you'll start to find is you're going to get to a position where you're going to scale much more aggressively. And instead of being a macro influencer with 50,000 followers and a 1% engagement rate, that then takes you to a position where you've got a follower to lead conversion of 0.5%, lead to client conversion rate of 20%, average deal size of 10K, that would be 500K in revenue. You could be a micro influencer with 5,000 followers, 8% engagement rate, 5% follower to lead conversion rate, 20% lead to client conversion rate with an average deal size of say 25K LTV. That would be total revenue of 1.25 million. So it's the same number of clients, but the micro influencer generates 2.5x more revenue because of more engagement, higher follower to lead conversion, and greater deal size as a result of that. So the point is, you don't actually need a massive audience to build a massive business. You do need an aligned, engaged audience that converts at high rates. And that's really the math behind this. And when you do that, you'll get to a point where you build deeper relationships, you'll convert at a higher rate, you'll have a more sustainable business. And it's the same approach that I personally have leveraged to actually grow and scale my business, my personal brand in a more sustainable manner. So as much as I now have 55,000 followers, it took time to get there because I was much more focused on building an engaged audience over time within the segment that I was in. And this has been a phenomenal, huge help to actually growing and scaling my business. And that took me to over 10 million impressions last year. And we've now driven over 100 million for our clients. So you can see it's compounded those results over over time. And so if you are someone who would actually value being able to really speed run your time to these types of results where you're winning clients with high intent leads through LinkedIn, then what you need is a done for you system based around having a media engine that is pushing and driving your LinkedIn presence to get you to becoming an authority on LinkedIn in a much faster time frame, to then put you in a position where you can really grow and scale and actually start to add more bottom line to your business. So if you would like a completely free breakdown of what it takes to get there, I want you to comment the word micro below and I'll send you a completely free breakdown of what it looks like to be able to really speed run your time to the result. So again, if you're looking for that, please just comment the word micro below and I'll get a copy of that sent over to you. I do hope you found the video helpful. If you have, please do take a second to like, comment, share and subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one.